We have two very lively guests, at least we hope they are, joining us this morning. Hope you've had your coffee, gents. David Ornstein from The Athletic and our very own Michael Bridge. David, I'm going to start with you. This time yesterday, we just learned, hadn't we, that Steven Gerrard was taking over from Dean Smith at Aston Villa. Is it a good appointment for the club?
Yeah, I think it really is, Gail. Morning, guys. I think Steven Gerrard has all the credentials to do a brilliant job at Villa Park. Of course, it's a bit of a gamble for him, taking his first job in the Premier League. And it's a bit of a gamble for Villa, who are struggling a couple of points outside the relegation zone. Their ambitions are far loftier than that. But from what we know, what we see, people we speak to, this is an incredible opportunity. Probably the best vacancy on the market. They're not in direct relegation trouble. They've got money to spend by the sounds of it. We know how wealthy their owners are at Villa. Their plan is to really challenge towards the top end of the Premier League. And Steven Gerrard would have been looking at that opportunity and thinking it might not come along very often for any manager, let alone somebody from the Scottish Premiership, where even the most successful managers north of the border have struggled to get top opportunities, and certainly not opportunities much higher at in the Premier League table. History would suggest even Brendan Rodgers and all he did at Celtic, he came into the job at Leicester. So I think it's a really good appointment. It's obviously one that has divided opinion among the Rangers fan base, but I do think Gerrard has what it takes to do extremely well.
David, just outline why Gerrard would want this job. I'm sure you're aware there's been a passionate debate online as to who's the bigger club, Rangers or Aston Villa, and in the media circles. But outline Gerrard's thinking here.
Well, I don't think it's about who's the bigger club, because, of course, as you say, Ed, in their own fans' eyes, they're bigger. One's a former European champion playing in the Premier League and in England. The other is one of the biggest teams in their mind in the world. Obviously one of the biggest two in Scotland, with a rich history of their own. And the Rangers fans will feel that there was unfinished business for Steven Gerrard, that he bought them their first title in a decade, blocked Celtic supremacy in their quest for 10 in a row. But at the same time, he only won one of 9 available trophies in his time there. He was amid a European season in the Europa League. And they really want to ram home their authority. Down at Aston Villa, he's going to be at the centre of what is a really exciting project there. Under the owners, Nassef Sawiris and Wes Edens, Christian Purslow, Chief Executive, Johan Langer, the Sporting Director. They've made great improvements to the training ground. Villa Park is incredible. It has been for a number of years now since they renovated it. The fan base is electric. And they really think that they can mix it with the best. Their stated aim of the board is to be competing in European football. And I think the groundwork that Dean Smith has laid has pretty much given somebody like Steven Gerrard the perfect platform to come into the Premier League and kick on. The investment to replace Jack Grealish with the likes of Leon Bailey, Danny Ings, Emi Buendia. I think Gerrard will be looking at it, firstly wondering how they're in that position in the league. I think it's 16th. But secondly, looking at the potential and thinking, goodness me, this is the prime opportunity.
Michael, David mentions it may be a bit of a gamble for Gerrard's. Premier League jobs, I guess, don't come up too often, do they? Is it one he simply had to go for?
Possibly. I think we can talk about the timing as well, but it is a gamble, and I'm sorry to Aston Villa fans because they're a massive, massive club, and it's a massive job for Gerrard, but you can't get away from the talk of him eventually becoming Liverpool manager in the future. And of course, if it doesn't go well at Aston Villa, it puts a huge dent in his chances, whereas if he stayed at Rangers, if he won the league again this season, so he retains it, we already know he stopped the 10, they're still in Europe. They're in the League Cup semi-final. He's got a very settled squad. And I think they'd have gone on to have won the league under him again this season. And I truly believe if and when Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp part, they would have considered Gerrard, even if he was the Rangers manager. If it doesn't work out at Aston Villa, then that chance certainly and surely diminishes.
So no stepping stone needed, Bridget. Michael.
I mean, Aston Villa fans, David's mentioned it, and even that sounds exciting, doesn't it, Aston Villa, with the money. We know they've still got quite a bit of money to spend. I'm sure Christian Purslow would have told Steven Gerrard that at Aston Villa. But it's such a tough league now, the Premier League, isn't it? We can talk about the top 3, kind of done and dusted, we always say, but 4th is, of course, up for grabs. As that Is that what's attracted Steven Gerrard? There are so many decent sides who could claim that 4th position. We know the struggles at Manchester United, and we know Gerrard has done pretty good, actually better than pretty good. He's done well in the transfer market at Rangers. Does he have that feeling, look, I can do something with this side with January looming?
What were you going to say, David?
Well, the one thing with Liverpool's owners, FSG, is they're not going to guarantee anybody the job. And so although there is a clear ambition of Gerrard to go and work at Liverpool, and I think many Liverpool fans would love to see it, I don't think Liverpool's owners are the sentimental type that will just watch him do well at Rangers and say, in you come. And Gerrard would have been acutely aware of that and open to not a stepping stone, but somewhere where he can really prove himself to keep himself in contention at some point for a job like Liverpool. Now, he was rumoured to be in the frame for Newcastle, and he very quickly dismissed that. And I think it takes a key relationship in this sort of situation to lure him away from a job that he said he was very content with at Rangers, and that was the Purslow link, because they worked together at Liverpool. They're said to still be very close. And in management, I was listening to Arsene Wenger speak earlier this week. He says it's all about timing, being in the right club at the right time with the right people. And I think Gerrard would have identified this as being ideal for him now, and with a view to hopefully being in the mix for Liverpool in the future, but with no certainties.
Michael, we saw the big posters of welcome to Ibrox come down yesterday within the space of a couple of hours. Do you feel that his legacy has been tarnished with not just moving, but when he's decided to move?
I do, Gail, yes, I do. Look, I felt sorry for the Rangers fans because there was no sort of we've agreed permission. It was just bang, straight away. Steven Gerrard, club statement, Steven Gerrard has joined Aston Villa, and that's going to hurt. Look, let's get this right. He turned Rangers from shambles into champions. Celtic fans are on Rangers accounts now laughing. They should be celebrating 10 in a row this season, and instead they're celebrating the guy who stopped it. So Gerrard will always have that recognition from Rangers, and for me it goes either way. If Rangers win the title this season, he's the man that stopped the 10. He built something at this club. But if they lose the title, a lot will be blamed on him and not the new manager. And that's the chunk of the legacy that will go with Steven Gerrard and Rangers Football Club.
Well, David, you mentioned it as well on the question of legacy. Where do you see it? You mentioned timing. Obviously, the timing's not great for Rangers. But overall, how do you assess the balance of his success? Because we've looked at other clubs winning domestic trophies outside of Celtic during Gerrard's reign in Scotland, haven't we?
I think you've got to look at what Steven Gerrard inherited and acknowledge that Rangers were in a state. I think they finished third in the Scottish Premiership before he arrived. And so he built really impressively. And he was synonymous as a player for his attacking quality, but he turned Rangers around from a defensive point of view first and foremost. I think that's one quality that will really appeal to Aston Villa, because their defence has gone from being one of the best in the Premier League last season to one of the worst this season. But he did spend a lot of money, Steven Gerrard, and we can't forget that either. You could say the state that Celtic were in and the money that Rangers spent and the amount of work that went on behind the scenes to get things right at Rangers, that he should have won that title. Now, again, there's so many pros and cons. He did go unbeaten, which is incredibly impressive. He spoke after a recent defeat in Europe, I think, to Prague, that they need to spend more money to go even further. And I think that may have put a few noses out of joint, that he was perhaps, in the eyes of Rangers fans, always wanting more, and the sort of finances and resources that would always lend themselves to him going and taking a Premier League job. He also never spoke in the same way as Brendan Rodgers, who sort of made it sound like it was a lifelong ambition to be managing Celtic and it's the job he would always be happy with. Gerrard was very committed, but it never felt to me that this was the ultimate aim for Steven Gerrard. He was always targeting that Premier League route. And so I think there'll be a great mixture of emotions up at Rangers at the moment, but largely, Ed, it will be dictated by whether they get the next appointment right.
Okay. Yeah, Michael, that brings us on to who might take over. 4 points ahead of Celtic. As you mentioned, League Cup semi v Hibs, Europa League qualification in their own hands. I guess they've got to get it right, they've got to get it quickly. Who do you think it might be?
I think Giovanni van Bronckhorst is rightfully the clear favourite. He knows the club very well. He's done well at managerial jobs in the past, especially in Holland. The fans want him. I've seen Derek McInnes linked again. I don't think Rangers fans would massively appreciate that because of past rivalries with Aberdeen, and he didn't take the job before. I think Van Bronckhorst is the one for me at the moment. But look, this is a massive job, Rangers Football Club. And we talk about Brendan Rodgers, but I know Celtic fans wanted and many thought Rodgers would stay. But I think a lot of the anger was directed of him because I think people knew how good he was. From his point of view, Rangers were in the Championship, going nowhere. Celtic got a bit stale for him. Gerrard is everything to play for this season. Celtic are fast improving. They've got a very charismatic manager playing good attacking football, still leaky at the back. But it's clear Rangers won't have it their own way this season. That's why it's so important to get the right manager. Ultimately, we talk about managers moving on from Scotland, but both managers, I mean, it's a great job, Celtic and Rangers, everywhere in Scotland. Ultimately, both managers, they wanted to be back in the Premier League, and that's fair enough. But I've seen a lot of criticism towards the Scottish Premiership on social media. But well, Gerrard's been linked with a number of Premier League jobs, so people are watching and appreciate it. And my advice to people, if you have not been to a game in Scotland, go. Because I'm telling you, Celtic and Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs. I went to Rangers in the Scottish third division.
Oh, my goodness.
52,000. This was against Queen's Park. It was one of the best atmosphere. My ears are still ringing, and that was in 2012. So it's a massive, massive club. It's impressive. A massive job. It's a massive job, and if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst takes it, it'll be a massive, massive honour for him.
We'll go through more memorabilia in a moment, Michael.
Yeah, very briefly. Just, I want to ask David if John Terry, they could go down the same route they did with Steven Gerrard. He's also on the list of people that could be managing. He's clearly looking for a step up after his time with Aston Villa. If they've gone down that route and had success with Steven Gerrard, could they do it again with John Terry?
Well, one of the reasons, Gail, that Villa let Terry go was because they wanted him to go and cut his teeth and get his first job in management. I don't know if he's ready for that to be at Rangers. He hasn't led a team on his own, to my knowledge. He was assistant, of course, to Dean Smith, whereas Gerrard had coached the Liverpool youth teams and was building a really good reputation as his own man, as a number one. I don't know how credible the links are to Terry and Rangers. I think Gio Van Bronckhorst is in the mix. I think it would be a really good appointment. Did brilliantly at Feyenoord. Very impressive to Manchester City when he spent some time up here doing some studying under Pep Guardiola. He was in contention to replace Mikel Arteta as Pep's assistant, and he's a really good guy, Gio Van Bronckhorst. Other names in the frame like Russell Martin, short and sharp impression at Swansea. Alex Neil's been mentioned too. That candidates list is absolutely massive for Rangers, and many managers will be seeing it as a route into the Champions League with the qualification in Scotland changing, and they're top of the league by 4 points. It may be automatic, it may be a qualifier. I think that's a plump job, and I don't think it's going to go to Terry, but it would be worthwhile him being in the process, because you need to be in it to win it. You need to be a candidate, you need to interview before getting your first gig in this game.